Hi, Haunted Family, and welcome back. I've pulled together an interesting assortment of stories for you today, and I do hope you enjoy. The very last story I'll be telling is possibly a ghost from Camp Douglas. And if you're not familiar with Camp Douglas, it was a POW camp used by the North during the Civil War. I don't know if we have an exact total of how many Confederate soldiers died at Camp Douglas. Some put the total at around 4,000. Some put it up close to 6,000. Many of them died from smallpox. So, this creates a fertile ground for hauntings. And my last story delves into that. So sit back and enjoy the show. Story 1. Hauntings. I grew up on an old dirt road that had a house that stood from the 1920s until it burned down in 1979. The road to our house branched off from the main road. It was almost a mile of pitch-black road with only 3 houses that had lights, with almost a half mile between the first house and the second house. It was a typical country road, up one hill and down, past the half-mile mark, around a turn, up another hill, back into the dark for at least a quarter mile, and then to our house. The first quarter mile was okay, but when you'd get to the top of the first hill, you could hear footsteps in the woods, pacing you. When you'd stop, it would stop. If you ran, it would run. As a young teenager, it would scare the crap out of you, and it seemed to really like females. I never heard it hit the road, but both my wife and a neighbor girl claimed it came off the bank and landed in the road. My wife saw it, just a black shape that went over the bank, down the other side. The neighbor girl claimed it followed her past the half-mile mark and chased her through the woods, and it came onto the road just before the last light before our house. She was so scared she refused to walk the last 100 yards to her house by herself. I never told my wife, she was then my girlfriend, about it, because I had become used to it. I was almost always coming home late at night, and whether I was walking or riding my bike, it always kept up with me. I had gotten so used to it that I would challenge it to race as I came up to the top of the hill where it would start, and whenever I called it, to run. But if I didn't, it wouldn't. I'm pretty sure if it had ever came off the hill, I wouldn't have been so comfortable with it. But like I said, it would come down a little, but always stayed in the trees. I never saw anything, no matter how bright the moonlight was. There was this place known as Dim Place. Everyone in the area knew about it. It was about 5 miles past mine. It was originally a farmhouse that had sat empty since about the 30s. The original owners were found in one of the upstairs bedrooms, sandwiched between 2 mattresses. Their heads had been cut off. Supposedly, their heads had never been found. What I do know for a fact was that this place always felt dark and eerie. Numerous people had seen things, from odd lights in the windows at night to actual full-body apparitions. The first person that tried to rebuild and live there gave up because no matter what he tried, he couldn't get the electricity in the house to work, even with new wires and a panel box. When I was about 8, I went there with my brother, sister, and a neighbor boy. I was the youngest, with my brother and his friend being 12, and our sister being about 14. So being the youngest, I was forced to go upstairs into the bedrooms first. As revenge, I decided to scare my brother, because he was pushing me up into the attic. As I got far enough up the steps, I could see into the attic, but no one else could, so I yelled, "Ghosts!" and turned around. My brother was closest to me, on the stairs, but he was the first one down the 3 flights of stairs. Unfortunately for him, he got caught on a nail at the very bottom of the last step. We all shot past him around the corner and through a massive briar patch. He was still inside, screaming. Looking back, I can't figure out why he didn't just rip his shirt free from the nail, and I swear to this day he was running in place, like one of those old cartoons. Our sister finally went back in to get him, and it was years before any of us went back into that house. Story 2. Chased by a Ghost. I was driving home from a friend's house and happened to look through my rearview mirror, and about 50 feet behind me was this figure. It was a male, about 6'4", very muscular, and vaguely transparent. The spirit proceeded to run after my car. In order not to crash, I had to look forward, but when I did look again, it was gone. A couple minutes go by, and I'm at my house, and what do I see running across the street? Well, this figure again, still vaguely transparent. Now, I'm normally very intrigued by the paranormal and supernatural, but this just felt very wrong. A month goes by, and I kind of forget about this occurrence. I return to my friend's house, and she tells me that she's been meaning to speak to me about something that she had saw. I know right off the bat what she's going to tell me. I say nothing and let her proceed. It seems that she, too, had been followed, chased, by a muscular, 6'4", semi-transparent man on the same exact street. We never figured out who it was or what it meant, but every so often we'll be driving along the street and we'll see him in our rearview mirror, chasing after our car, still just as semi-transparent as ever. Story 3. Grandma's Soldier. Back in the 50s, my grandparents, who live in suburban Chicago, were driving to dinner along a tree-lined, two-lane road. It was a dark, clear, winter evening. As they drove, my grandfather noticed a man walking along the side of the road. As they approached, my grandmother noticed that his clothes appeared to be that of a Civil War soldier, complete with hat and markings. There were no reenactments going on, especially not in the dead of winter, from where he could have came from. As they got closer to the man looked over his shoulder and stared at them both in the face. They drove past, and when they looked back, they saw him only for a brief second before darkness engulfed him. Curious and spooked, my grandmother urged my grandfather to turn the car around, and he did so almost immediately and drove back. But the man in the gray uniform was nowhere to be found. They've told me this story numerous times, and upon doing my own research, I realized that there was, in fact, a Civil War camp, a POW camp in Chicago, and spotting the ghosts of Civil War soldiers is not at all uncommon. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. Thanks for listening. Bye.